All right. Yeah. So hi everyone. My name is Bingxu. And my partner is Vivian. We're both freshmen from UC Berkeley. Yeah.
So
initially there's our problems. We have listed problem statements.
okay, so like these are the prompts.
Yeah. We can skip the problems. It's fine. Okay. So yeah. So our approach to the problem, first we break up the problem into 3 parts. First part is that we have to establish a communication scheme. Second part is that we have to know how are we going to communicate, like how much can we really talk. And lastly, we have to know how are we going to maximize the information that we can transfer over on phone only. So our initial approach is that we're going to change our perspective by looking at ourselves as an alien. Like imagine we're the Martians. How are we going to communicate to the people on Earth? I think this changing perspective helped us a lot throughout our problem solving. And then first we established some initial key concepts that concept is a really abstract word. And what it really is that verb is a language abstraction that represents action. We can, a concept of jumping is being represented by the word jump. And similar for apple, and that's our noun, and blue is eventually adjectives.
Okay, so for our theory, we are trying to find the universal language. So we define universal language as communicating various information. So our hypothesis is that this universal language is enough to communicate basic information. For example, numbers and elements and yes or no. As stated in the prompt, we can use tick 1 to represent 1 and tick 2 to represent 2 and so on and so forth. And for the periodic element, we can use the ratios of the masses of each atom relative to the proton by using numbers defined above to define element. And for yes and no, and that's just a simple agreement, we can just tick or no tick to represent yes or no, because they're opposite in definition. And so we're now trying to answer the first part of the prompt to communicate the instructions to bake vegan chocolate chip cookies. So the first thing we're going to do is to communicate the elements of the ingredients for the vegan chocolate chip. We can use the definition we defined in the previous slides to communicate the elements. And then we're trying to communicate bake. So it's very hard to communicate the action. So what we're thinking about is to use, it's trying to communicate fire, because we can give several examples. For example, the elements of wood going through the chemical process of burning to demonstrate that they need to use fire. And then we need to tell them the bake time instructions. And we can represent the timing using the numbers. And we are lacking something here. The first one, as I said above, is the action of baking. And also we can communicate the color for the cookies because we don't have a way to say like whether it's black or yellow. So we don't know if the cookie is baked correctly. Okay, so now we're coming to the second part. So similar to the previous one, firstly we're trying to communicate the element, because we are trying to get buff, so we need to tell them the biological element of the body part, especially our muscle, using the elements that constitute our muscle. And then we can say muscle and then the element, and then we can increment in numbers to represent the growing muscles. For example, tick 1 muscle, tick 2 muscle. And then we can use some sort of aerobic metabolism chemical process to represent it moving using chemical equation. For example, like CSH12O6, tick O2, tick tick, CO2, tick tick, H2O. We're using tick to represent plus and tick tick to represent the arrow in the chemical equation. And we can give several examples of these chemical equations to establish the pattern so that Martians, they can realize that what we are trying to communicate. And also, like, we can see that we eliminated the number of the chemical balancing to avoid confusion, because we're trying to using the number to represent the element. And if we put extra numbers in front of the elements, it will cause confusion. And still, in this example, we are lacking the action of weightlifting. Bingxu, would you mind to go to the
Yeah,
second?
and another thing is, last thing that we try to communicate a really interesting sentence, that we come up with this sentence that saying hello in variety of languages. We realize that tone is a pretty important concept in this phone communication, that every single language that we speak here on Earth, when we say hello, has the same tone in it, whether it's ni hao or konnichiwa. And so we can analyze the phrase of the tone. Analyzing the tone is one thing that we need to consider as well, that tone sometimes can also communicate a meaning throughout. And since it's 2 minutes remaining, I do have some code demos that we want to show. So basically our communication method is that we're going to communicate elements first. And then we do reach a conclusion that we're lacking the ability to communicate verb and adjective. It will be better if we have images instead of phone calls. And so speaking of code demos, let me do this. Okay, so basically I wrote a pretty simple program that allows the machine to learn. We can first make it learn what hydrogen is by taking once. Oh wait, sorry, that was the wrong. And taking 6 times is carbon. I think that's 8. And the last one will be oxygen. And so this is the way how we're going to communicate using like chemicals, since like molecules or atoms are universal. And the way that we can do it is that when it's receiving something, we can just say that element of hydrogen as 1, and element of carbon, oxygen as 1. Shoot, my bad. All right. And it's going to know it's water. Or if I do something like element of hydrogen is 12, element of carbon is 6, and element of oxygen is also 6. That it knows it's glucose.
Your time is up, unfortunately.
Yeah.